It's day 88, everyone, of President Bola Tinubu's administration, and we are monitoring closely developments in his first 100 days in office. Thank you for joining us on the program. I am Nifebi Oguntoye. You can join the conversation now on Twitter. Use the hashtag first 100 days. Remember to tag at TVC News NG. Let's begin from the presidential villa, where President Tinubu promised his administration would conclude a thorough review of the remuneration templates of judicial officers in the country. He said this when receiving the leadership of the Nigerian Bar Association, led by Yakubu Maikyau. The president said the battle against corruption necessitates a comprehensive review of the salaries and allowances of judicial officers, an issue that is well known to him, given his landmark success in reforming justice administration while he was governor of Lagos. The president equally acknowledged the importance of addressing the current vacancies within the Supreme Court, which he insists the vacancies represent obligations that must be fulfilled based on recommendations put forth by the National Judicial Council. The NBA president in his remarks commended the president for appointing very distinguished members of the bar into his cabinet, including Lateef Fagbemi, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice.
Well, actually, what we've done is to profusely thank Mr. President for the choice of Prince Lateef Fagbemi as the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice. This is one man that we can only describe as a round peg in a round hole. Someone that commands the respect of the bar, someone that has held himself high, has conducted himself in the best traditions of the bar, and we are happy that Mr. President made this choice of Prince Lateef Fagbemi to be the Attorney General of the Federation. We actually thanked Mr. President for the choice of Prince Lateef Fagbemi as the President of the Attorney General of the Federation. It wasn't a mistake. We are proud of that choice, and we've also told Mr. President that we would support the Honorable Attorney General. The bar, under my leadership, by the special grace of God, will support the Honorable Attorney General in the...
Now, the federal government, through the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Malam Mohammed Idris, has reacted to the Edo State Governor, Godwin Obaseki's recent statement criticizing the federal government's reforms on fuel subsidy and currency exchange. The statement faulted the Edo State Governor's stance, urging him to be more statesmanlike in his utterances and actions. Governor Godwin Obaseki earlier in a statement criticized the federal government of having no clear plans on what to do after removing fuel subsidy. The governor, who described the federal government's palliative concept as fraudulent, made the assertion while addressing journalists in Benin City, while saying his administration would implement measures to support Edo people. But in a swift reaction, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, says the federal government understands the difficulty Nigerians are facing following the petrol subsidy removal, and that the president is working to make the country prosperous. The statement reads, quote, President Tinubu is guiding our country through very challenging times. We are supremely confident that we will soon turn the corner into a prosperous future. What is required at this time is for leaders at all levels to cooperatively bind together to make life better for Nigerians, and not to play cheap politics that serves no better purpose. End of quote. Joining me on the program this evening is Executive Director, Canvassers for Democracy and Executive Director, Center for Social and Economic Rights, Olu Martins, and Nelson Ekujimi. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Martins. The federal government's position is that the issue of removing petrol subsidy has been consistently advocated for by many stakeholders over the years, apparently because of its fiscal discussions and the burden it places on the economy. And the government is saying it's important for leaders to now work together instead of engaging in what it calls unproductive politics. How do you react to that?
Well, I completely concur with the fact that there's a need for cohesion among all the critical stakeholders, including our political office holders. But that is not to say that because there should be a consensus of ideas, that we should not also critically analyze the removal of fuel subsidy. Because we're dealing with human beings, and human beings do not have a replacement for their lives. The level of anguish, agony, and pain that people are going through, occasioned by the removal of the fuel subsidy, is real. And honestly speaking, many people had also thought that because the president of Nigeria now it was not a knee-jerk experience. He had said it during his campaigns that there was going to be the removal of fuel subsidy. So we thought that there was already going to be a template, because now it looks like you're taking somebody into the theater and administering anesthesia after you have begun the operation. Ideally is that you should first of all administer anesthesia before you take him to the theater so that he doesn't feel the pains of cutting him open. When you cut him open and he's already crying, and then you now administer anesthesia, the anesthesia will either not be effective or it will have defeated his purpose. I think that is what the governor of Edo State is trying to say. Not also forget that in recent times, we are told that the landing cost of petrol occasioned by the fall in dollar to naira has gone up. And the president is now, or the government, through its spokesperson, is saying that there will not be further increases. So it looks like, technically speaking, we are reintroducing subsidy when the market forces should determine the price, of petrol. So it looks like we didn't prepare. There was some serious critical thinking, and that is the thought of a lot of people, that government should have thought about the back and forth of market forces determining what would happen if you remove petroleum, subsidy. So I think that's what the governor of Edo State. I'm not sure that he was throwing brickbats. He was just speaking the obvious truth. Give it to the governor of Edo State. 2 years ago, he said that we're printing currency beyond our legal threshold, and people tongue-lashed him. Federal government at that time, under the former president, tongue-lashed him, but it happened, to be true. So I think sometimes, people like him who have been in the organized private sector, who know how these things run, if they make statements like this, it's not enough for there just to be a backlash. We need to critically look at what they are saying so that at the end of the day, we can all be better for it. Nigeria belongs to everybody.
All right, let me bring Mr. Ekujime in here. The position, I'm sure you heard him, is that the palliatives came in months after that declaration was made on Inauguration Day. Do you agree that there wasn't as much planning as the Edo State governor alluded?
Well, thank you very much. The truth of the matter is that the statements coming from the office of the governor of Edo State in recent times, is rather unfortunate. And one expects that once you are saddled with a position of responsibility as high and sensitive as the governorship of a state, you should recognize the equivalent tax, the enormous responsibility that such an office bestows on an individual. And if you are unprepared for it, the state has enough resources to, assess you the necessary training, the necessary tools to fine-tune you to align with what is expected of the office of a governor. Be that as it may, I wonder where Governor Obaseki was when the 2023 appropriation bill was passed into law by the National Assembly around December last year. The removal of fuel subsidy, we all know, which we have all clamored for over the years because of the fact that, people have always said it was not profiting the generality of the people, but the selected few, had been done by the previous administration. And when people come up and say enough consultation was not made. I asked them, was the fuel subsidy removal, was it in place by President Bola Tinubu? The answer is absolutely no.
Mr.
The fuel
Ekujimi,
subsidy regime,
let me just
Yes.
follow up your position very shortly. Very quickly. The Edo State governor wasn't quite keen about the removal of fuel subsidy, as it were. I think his position was the preparation of this administration that knew that this was the way it was going to toe before even being sworn in on the 29th of May. I think it was concerned about the palliative plans and, the cushion effect that it had for the masses.
okay, as at today, which is August 25, the fuel subsidy removal had been implemented from June 2023. The question we should ask, what have been the gains from the fuel subsidy? And the gains, have they accrued to Edo State government? And if the gains have accrued to Edo State government, we need to ask, what has Edo State government done to cushion the effect on the generality of the people? It is not enough for you to say no plans were made. When you talk about plans, plans need to be implemented with resources. And the plans that we are talking about today, have started manifesting in the fact that the president has come on public space to tell us that they have been able to, to see.
All right, we'll get back to
About
Mr.
$1 trillion.
Oh, I think we can hear you now. Please go ahead. All right, we'll get back to Mr. Ekujimi shortly. But let me just ask you, Mr. Martins, the federal government statement also faulted Governor Obaseki for not being present in the previous two NEC meetings. And this was the meeting where decisions relating to the economy were taken. So if he had bright ideas about how things should be done differently, as a stakeholder in this government, are you concerned that he didn't make those previous two meetings?
We don't know that no fuel subsidy. At least people outside the shores of this country are
okay.
financial experts.
Hold on, Mr.
The IMF has
Ekujimi.
come up to
Just hold on a little.
The World Bank
We
has
lost
come
you
to
for a
them.
bit, so I may have to get
Yes.
back to you, all right? Let's just fix that connection and then we'll get back to you. Please go ahead, Mr. Martins.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, let me say that for every meeting, that's what we call a quorum. You need two thoughts to be part of, for a meeting to be considered. A meeting can go on, and then you need a simple majority. So Governor Obaseki is an individual, and for very obvious reasons, he may not have been able to attend those meetings. I do know that a few weeks ago or a few months ago, he had to travel abroad for a minor operation on his eyes. And I'm not holding brief, for him, because when Mr. Ekujimi says that the statements made by the Edo State governor are unfortunate, he needs to mention the specific statements. But it's also good that you have also, quote and unquote, elucidated on the point that Governor Obaseki was trying to make. If, for instance, I want to build a house, I already have an idea of how many children I will have. I don't build a house and then begin to attach the rooms when the children are born. If I know that I'm going to have 4 children, for instance, 2 boys and 2 girls, that's my plan. My plan for a 4-bedroom would have been in place. I don't build a 2-bedroom and then I will not have a child. I will have a girl now. I will not go and attach, another bedroom to it to accommodate, the girl. That's what Governor Obaseki is trying to say. You don't have all the resources when you budget. That's why it's called a budget proposal. It's not a budget actuality. You envisage that these kind of things may happen, and then you say, these are the things that will happen if it happens. It's called needs assessment.
I get that point,
it's a
Mr.
fallback
Martins. If you allow me shortly, I get that point. I get that position. But, the concern of many Nigerians is also that talk is cheap. The new ministers now, all of them have been talking, but Nigerians are concerned about matching words with action. So he's the governor. He's a governor himself. He was also quoted to have said that his administration will implement measures to support Edo people. It's strange that governors would say the body language or the position of the federal government is wrong. But the question is, what is it doing? The federal government has already made known very clear its plan for intervention. Has it done anything different, you know, from...
Absolutely. Before
exactly
now,
what has it done?
And it's on record that Edo State is the only state that is paying 40,000 as minimum wage. When Labour went on that national protest, I was part of Labour civil society. And so I was in that rally when the governor said on a monthly basis, 500 million will be drawn from the coffers of the state to ameliorate the effect, to help people, to cushion the effect of the removal of fuel, subsidy. As we speak, just a few days ago, the government had approved the increase in salary of traditional rulers. The governor also went on to say, we don't need people coming to work 5 times a week, so we can reduce his transport burden. Edo State, for instance, people go to school, people go to work 3 times a week. Students go to school 3 times a week. JSS have their schedules that they come. SS, senior secondary, have the schedules that they come. The rest of the learning takes place online so that we can, cushion the effect of having to transport, because the greater burden of this fuel subsidy is
Mr. Martin,
in the transport effect.
Let me quickly say that. Just a minute, let me just butt in because of our time. That's pretty much like, the narrative we've heard from every other state as to how governors are, intervening in this regard. But let me hear from Mr. Ekujibi very briefly. The president was quite explicit in his nationwide broadcast about the federal government intervention plans, from grants to, to state governments, loans to businesses and what have you. But I spoke with the commissioner for information in Osun just yesterday, who mentioned that the state government was yet to receive a kobo. We also spoke with, I think, the chairman of the Yaba LCDA, who also did mention that they are yet to get any of the bags of rice promised. Do you think that we are on time as regards this intervention, months after subsidy has actually been removed?
Well, thank you very much. You have interrupted me, and maybe the technical.
It was the network. We could not hear you for a while. Okay, that was why I asked the other person.
Yes. I thank my other guest who has assumed the role of the spokesperson of Governor Obaseki, who has gained authority as governor of MOU. That is a governor who has been in office for almost 8 years now, and the only thing you can point to as his achievement, just like his brother who has left office, Governor Samuel Otom of Benue State, whenever it comes to the end of the month, to allege that Fulani men are the reason why he cannot perform his executive responsibility. Governor Obaseki has been noted as a governor who signs MOU, but Edo State, as we speak, governance is at a standstill. This is a governor that till today he has refused to inaugurate the State House of Assembly.
This guy is
he doesn't. He's not. He has held the state hostage. So be that as it may, talking about the subsidy palliatives, even in the local government where I live here in Lagos State, you can go to the social media. Local government chairmen in Lagos State are already implementing their own palliatives, even before they get, the palliatives from the state government. Don't forget, the federal government, in acting to our cries for true federalism, had to devolve the powers of, distribution of pushing the effect on the populace to the state government. And one expects the state government to also devolve that responsibility to the local government. And as we speak, I can tell you, I've been a witness, I've seen beneficiaries of palliatives at the minute level of the local government. So we should understand that states states have gotten it, how they are putting in place measures to distribute it is not something that will happen in a twinkle of an eye. The process has to be set in place such that at the end of the day, it is not mismanaged. So for anybody to come on board on public space and say, oh, the policy was not thought through, then that person is being clever by half. We need to let the Nigerian people know that This policy had been, earmarked since 2022, and the resources to do that are coming on stream. And even the government, the previous government, even went as far as securing a $800 million, loan, grant from the World Bank to be distributed to, about 12 million poor households on the national register. When the previous government wanted to put in place that measure, because of the cries from the public space, the previous government had to, hold on to that policy and say that policy will be carried out by its successor. And the successor in coming on board, like I said earlier on, has now in acting to the cries for true federalism.
Okay. I get you very clearly, Mr. Ekujimi. Let me hear from Mr. Martins. We just have about 2 more minutes. I know you want a rebuttal, but it's also important that we pay attention to the solution, because it is our government, it is Nigeria, right? What do you think the federal government should be doing differently? In 1 minute.
Yes, no, Mr. Ekujimi, we should have focused on the solutions, because he's not from Edo State. And it is not wisdom to hear a matter from one side. He doesn't live here. And then when he says that I have assumed the role of spokesperson, that means that he doesn't even know me. There's no, Bible says an unwise man that will hear a story from one side and draw conclusions. He's from, I don't know the state. I don't even know him. So I would rather that we don't throw punches and talk about solution. He talks about how the Edo State is on standstill. I don't know where he's getting such, baseless. It seems for me that he's decided to play the hatchet, and it's unfortunate because we came here for solution.
Mr. Martin,
he's talking about holding the state ransom.
It's important that we take this conversation between from you and Mr. Ekujimi. Let us focus on the issues.
Yeah, no, Ekujimi should have stayed. No, Ekujimi should have stayed. He didn't stay with the issues. If he didn't stay with the issues and he's throwing tantrums about how Edo State is not working, I have the right of rebuttal. We didn't, stop him when he was making those statements.
What should government be doing differently? We have just 1 more minute to go.
What the federal government should be doing, for instance, is that it should widen its dragnet in terms of ideas. For instance, I'm talking about CNG bus. Do you know how long it takes, Nifemi, to put together a bus, vehicles that run on natural gas? It would take, quite at least 2 years. Those vehicles, would not arrive here. So what I think that the federal government should do is to, now that we have ministers, we can, quote and unquote, take the responsibility of the president. We expect that the president should supervise the ministries that are directly involved with these things. Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Finance, and all of those ministries that will help the palliatives come to fruition. As it is now, Nigerians are waiting, for the manifestation of those palliatives. Nobody says Mr. President hasn't done well in removal of the subsidy. We're just saying that the cushioning effect should have come before, the removal. Now that they are,
I hear you, Mr. Martin.
Something should be done to speed them up.
I think you made your point very clearly.
As the normal people on the streets.
Mr. Ekujimi,
thank you very much.
I'll give you 60 seconds, but you have to stay on the issue. What can the federal government do better moving forward? We have less than a minute to go.
Yes, the federal government has already set in motion the process for, a long-lasting, solution to the effect of fuel subsidy. And these are through, the mechanism of, providing CNG buses and electric buses, as well as, the ministries of finance or ministries of trade and investment, of giving, soft loans to medium and, small scale and businesses. These are the way to go in the long run. And if we go by the fact that we are going to move away from fossil fuel, which the whole world is clamoring for in order to have a safer and better environment. And that is what the federal government has already earmarked. Because these palliatives we are talking about are just temporary measures. We are talking about long-term measures that will make life livable for the average Nigerian, just like anywhere in the world.
Executive Director, Canvassers for Democracy and Executive Director, Center for Social and Economic Rights, Reverend Olu Martins, Nelson Ekujimi. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.